Obviously, that's how we do it every time. Jake blows the horn, it just
Obviously.
summons me, and then we get started, you know?
Obviously.
But greetings. You're watching SeptumSin versus the World. I'm SeptumSin. I'm here with Kotobuki Jake and Brittany from Embria Arts. And today we have a special anime to discuss for Anime Anti-Climax. We decided we were going to try and start a long form series on a series. And it came up randomly, and none of us had seen it. And now we've seen it. And I think this is where we're not going to continue this to the season 2. And that is Qwaser. Was it Qwaser of Stigmata? This is a series about booby warriors, literally. People who use breast milk to fuel their elemental powers as they fight for the sake of reviving God and defeating God.
Technically, Soma, which is like Life Force, but it looks an awful lot like that.
So I'm going to just go down and I will do the typical. So, well, Jake, was this your first time watching Qwaser of Stigmata?
It was. So this was a show that I had picked up somewhere along the line. It was probably really cheap on one of the many Sentai sales. And so it was one of the many Sentai series that's been collecting dust, waiting for me to watch it. So I'm glad I had an excuse. Now, of course, it's the 2-season set, which means now I'm going to have to watch season 2 to complete it and file it away as watched. So, yay. I knew the show had a reputation. I knew almost nothing beyond that. And didn't give it a second thought, really, until it came up in the choice here. And once I'm finished watching it, I don't know that I will give it a second thought, except every once in a while. I have a feeling this will become sort of a dark joke with this group. It's an interesting series. It has some interesting ideas. I rather like the art for the most part. There were exceptions. Some of the music was good, but I've seen shows in the past where not to put too fine a point on it, sexual perversion is a key element of the plot. But this show, while it's watchable and it has its enjoyment value, it's nowhere near as charming and fun as Aminaidio. It's nowhere near as fun as going to be the Twin Tail. And I think it puts both of them to shame in terms of how hard it leans into some of those elements. And on top of that, again, that in of itself would not be much to me. But on top of that, they seem to go out of their way to hit on everything that might be crossing a red line that they could think of. They seem to go out of their way to dare people to hate the show. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I was thinking. And from what I've heard so far, I imagine that I'm actually going to be the most lenient on this show on tonight's discussion. I could be wrong. But I will say that it's weird that we just spent a month on freaking Skeleton Key, and then we've got this, and both of them really went hard on well, they could have been better in certain areas. Put it that way. Was it Skeleton Key 2 that also had sucking of boobies?
It did. It did.
I think it was the second. Yeah, I think it was the second one. But the fondling of breasts was prevalent in both of these series. So that's an interesting overlap. Yeah, I don't hate it, and I've seen worse, but it right before we went on, Brittany was asking me why it took me so long to get through 24 episodes. There are a lot of reasons why I would much rather do any number of other things than watch this show, and that's exactly what happened. You know, joining my brother for watching Daredevil and Jessica Jones, going to GalaxyCon, doing work in the garden, even watching Skeleton Key, although that's borderline.
The fourth movie was decent.
Yes. And I will say this show is nowhere near as tedious as that series was. But actually, let me rephrase that. I would rather do this than Skeleton Key. I will say that. But it's kind of close. And I'm not talking about the Kate Hudson movie. That was actually quite enjoyable. That was a good way.
We did cover that this month.
We did, yes.
Last month, yes.
And I'll leave it at that for now. I'm sure as we go, we'll hit specific things.
Well, so Brittany, was this your first exposure to Qwaser Stigmata?
Interesting choice of words.
Yeah. One, this is the second series we've hit this year that is sexually assaulted heavy. And never in my life would I think I'd see some of the gravest animation mistakes, and yet the most detailed animation in the same anime.
But
the detail was only in one place. And it wasn't the action. It was absolutely every time we see boobs.
They knew what the audience wanted.
Yes and no. Like, I mean, after Mahuyu got her power up, which was kind of awesome, and then she, quote, went back to normal. Yeah, I feel like there were some inconsistencies in size throughout the series, but
there's inconsistency in size of a lot of things, not just the boobs.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about when I'm talking about detail. I mean, they studied how a boob reacts to senses, to touches, through everything. You had to have those animators literally sitting in a room staring at a woman's chest to get to this detail. And it blows my mind, but it still pisses me off. And I want something that's a lot different than this in the future.
Well
I really do.
Well, we have something very different planned for the end of this month.
Yeah.
Actually, much more wholesome in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, I know. I've already seen it, so I mean, I'm well aware.
Though I would almost say Ninja Scroll is more wholesome than this.
Yeah, absolutely. No, because there's only boobs for a brief fraction there, comparably.
Ninja Scroll is
well, this comes down to the old debate. I am a very, 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 very vocal on this opinion that in America, you can get as violent as you want, and it's much more wholesome than even a little bit of sex. And there was sex and assault and violence and rape and all that in Ninja Scroll. So
yeah, but that was over 90 minutes.
I agree with you, Jacob, but it's short.
It is short.
Compared to making it a way to power up in this series, so it's seen multiple times in multiple ways.
Now, I will admit, it's an intriguing power-up. I will admit that.
I had to stop counting how many seconds it took to get boobs on the screen when it was 0 seconds. So it baffles me how you can barely go through the anime. Within 5 minutes, there's guaranteed boobs. Anytime. You can just, pick any point in time of the show, and there's guaranteed boobs.
Yes.
Within 5 minutes. The clothing is tissue paper.
And even when they're not showing when they're not showing naked boobs, they're talking about boobs. Or they're groping boobs. Even the other female characters, they're groping their own boobs or somebody else's boobs.
This is a preteen's freaking daydream. Wet daydream. Every time, boob, boob, boob. When they're talking about boobs, all the girls have to, have lesbian sex and boobs.
Right.
Yep. Did you have anything else for your first impression?
Well, yeah, there's one other thing to say. This would be one thing if it were, a slice of life or a comedy series. We'd see these boobs regularly. This is an action anime.
Yep.
So there's supposed to be plot. I don't know what the plot is. I've watched it. I can't tell you how we came to the plots, but it was there.
There is plot, but it feels incomplete at times.
It feels like a discount RPG.
They literally wrote the plot in at the last 6 episodes.
Well, all right. I guess that's it.
Yeah, that's about it.
For now. Well, I have one thing I can say about this show, and I think another individual can say it best. It stinks. But it runs deeper than that. To me, I don't hate the series necessarily, but I do feel like it's kind of screwed up the fact that there was potential for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like that there was an okay series in this, like a mediocre to maybe good shonen series.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually made me think, one of these days I'm going to have to get like a list out for a video of like top 10 anime that were ruined by the perversion of the creator of the series. Or something like that, because that's really where it is. To me, I think that they had something there. I think that they had, when I saw this, I kind of liked the elemental power thing.
Yeah.
And Roger did warn me about the boob thing, and but he didn't prepare me for how much it was going to be used, or how obsessed it was. But I try my best to think of who would like this series. Dave, who's not here, who would be singing this series' praises. I am no doubt.
Yeah.
But
we'll find out eventually.
I mean, anybody who can like Salo and say that it has meaning to them would like this series.
Isn't Bunny the Killer Thing his second favorite movie?
It is. That's about a giant mutant bunny rabbit that goes around raping people to death and yelling "pussy" at the top of his lungs.
Yeah,
so, I mean, standards.
Right.
Let me see here. Man, my train of thoughts messed up.
Oh, yes, of course. Sometimes I lose my train of thought. One time I missed the train because I was looking at a girl.
And that's exactly what was happening.
Oh, yeah, it happens a few times in this one.
But really and truly, a lot of this, I like the concept around it. I think that the powers are cool. I think that there's the basis of a decent, maybe even good shonen anime in this. I love the elemental powers concept, even utilizing the church and the whole like resurrecting the evil Cthulhu god angle that they go towards the end. It does have there. You could put in. I mean, I could see this, and I look at the series and I think this is waste right here. I felt something similar when I watched the first 2 episodes or 3 episodes of High School of the Dead with Kim, and we were both into it big time because it was a fairly serious zombie horror series. And then it became an ecchi series for some reason. And I was left pissed off. I wasn't left as pissed off by this because this didn't have near the potential that a High School of the Dead did. But it also doesn't have nearly the following of High School of the Dead. So, I know a lot of people disagree with me on that.
I would agree with you that this one has a lot of potential. Like, I agree. The elemental aspect is really cool. I mean, and even the idea of Soma and powering up in that way could have been a great idea. Just the main issue, I would say, in show, other than failing to develop certain key ideas, like all the different factions involved and how the heck the gold Qwaser actually got resurrected.
Well, they were too boob obsessed, really.
Yeah. But the biggest thing is our protagonist. You said this could have been a good shonen series. A lot of shonen series, they have solid protagonists. Naruto is a solid protagonist. The Elric brothers are solid protagonists. Even Luffy is a better protagonist than Sasha. Sasha is just a weak excuse for a cardboard cutout protaginist.
Sasha is the emo kid. Yeah, honestly, he's literally just the emo kid.
It's like if someone took Ed Elric and took all the personality away except for the emo part of it, and that's pretty much him, and just made him boob obsessed. That's pretty much it.
Well, Sasuke, who loves boobs. But it's, I mean, to me, that was the other thing I don't care for. A lot of things, like I said, there are 2 things that I dislike about series, and it didn't necessarily bore me, which, though, the fact that I had to have my complete attention on it, because whenever I watch a series in sub, this is a series that would have benefited for me if it was dubbed, because I could have gone through it very quickly at that point, kind of relegating it to the background, because it didn't really need a lot of my attention, but apparently it did because I had to read everything. And but the problem is the characters. I don't like any of the characters a lot. I think the character I liked the most was a pseudo villain / good guy. He was the sodium user who kind of is in, because I thought he has a cool design.
Yeah.
This series,
my favorite hero was of the element that is radial, is basically X-ray element.
I think that the series would have been okay if they had decided to do a couple of changes to it. Instead of making it boob milk, you could have had this society that had sort of like a church type leaning and had like kind of a Holy Spirit by particularly pure women who kind of channeled the Virgin Mary. And you could even have had a lot of comedy worked into that. if you wanted to have a little bit of sex comedy, but it didn't have to be all sex comedy. And you could have that pairing of the ultimate, virgin sex.
Hey. There was Borscht jokes.
Oh,
Yeah, there was that.
And then they could have had some characters
although it did not rise anywhere to the level of the borscht sushi in Dorara.
But yeah, I too actually was watching something as it was just this week. I watched The Great Emu War, which was a fun enough movie, but not one that I am eager to watch again anytime soon.
And here we have the Great Emo War.
And it involved emu boob sucking. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It's basically it's a take on the Australian Emu War.
Real event for people to know.
Done via the concept of platoon.
Okay, so
Done via the concept of a mixture of Thanksgiving 3 and Meet the Feebles.
Okay, if things killing people are involved, then I'm sure I understand it there.
Boob sucking of or by the emus?
No.
I mean, for people to know, the Great Emu War was a war that Australia fought and lost to emus.
Right.
The actual creature.
I know of it, yeah.
Oversimplified did a great video of it. You should check them out on YouTube. They don't update but once a year, but hell, those updates are cool. But yeah, the Emu War one I still look up because it's hilarious. Because they go through all of the state or the country's animals and how majestic they are, and then I was like, Australia's bird is the emu. It's a pest. And I'm like, oh. But this one definitely did not appeal to me, and I went ahead and I've actually watched both seasons, and it doesn't get better. Actually gets worse in season 2.
Huh.
I thought the pacing was bad in season 1, and I'll talk a little bit more about season 2 at the end since I'm the one who watched it. But just to say, pacing is horrible, and it seems like I'm always coming back to freaking pacing in movies. I guess because I watch a lot of micro budget movies and everybody's trying to extend it to that full length time or to 2 hours for some freaking reason.
You did just extend us to an 8-hour. You did just expose us to an 8-hour franchise that took 8 hours to tell roughly a 2-hour story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry. The next pick I have for that thing is actually something I like.
Okay.
But as far as this, I guess we'll get into it. One of the other things that came up that was weirdly relevant that we've been talking about is that Texas Bill 20, which most of the anime community has been talking about. For most referencing, it's a law that, from what looks like, still hasn't processed through yet. That is designed to, the main design of it is to eliminate AI kiddie porn, which I think is a noble cause. But they worded it in such a general way to where pretty much all anime would be illegal or considered child porn in Texas. Because the way it looks like is that any child that looks to be lewd, making any type of lewd gestures or a adult that looks like a child that could
is slightly a problem for a small company named Crunchyroll that exists in Texas.
Isn't Sentai also based out of Texas?
I think they moved out of Texas though.
Oh, okay.
But just to say, this anime, for instance, there's no even line to look at. There's no blur there. That's just a straight on line that says, yes, this would be child porn under that law. And there's a part of me that wouldn't be upset if it was considered such and banned. But there's also that part of me that doesn't like censorship. So it's kind of on the fence. But this thing is very... Ooh. But this definitely...
I am very much anti-censorship. I am pro... the concept of the law, like you are, Brandon. I think it needs to be stated at like a age group, and probably also maybe a concept that some countries treat things differently in a sense.
Of course, we're talking about Texas. Nuance is not their strong point.
Well, it's more about who would probably be determining what is and what isn't.
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, it comes down to who's doing the judgment call.
Yeah,
Most
and
people doing the judgment call probably don't even know what anime is.
Yeah.
It's like the people doing the ratings for video games who have never played video games before.
Yeah.
Like those hearings on Night Trap. And believe it or not, I don't consider this a party issue. This is the same stuff that came up in the 90s, and it was the other party that was leading the charge then. So it's something that all politicians seem to get a bee in their bonnet about and then overreact. So
I mean, it goes either way. It doesn't really matter who does it. It's just, you could say it's one thing here and another thing there, and it's just anime eventually is going to get its time in the spotlight of that target, because it's a genre, not a style, and far too many people, especially in Hollywood, keep misjudging anime as a child's show.
Yeah.
It's just generally it's this stupid ass thing that we see a lot in America, and we see it not so much in this group, but like in the Movies Galore group, we have members who frequently make comments to this effect. People look at animation, they think it's for kids, and so many Americans are trained to think that way. And animation is just a way of making something. It is not in any way meant for any particular age group. But so many people have that stupid ass prejudice that, it's like we could watch something in live action. People wouldn't say a peep about it. You see it in animation. What are you showing our kids? It's like,
well, I mean, the anime industry, the only reason why anime became so popular in Japan, it's not really because it's drawing, it's because it is so expensive and so hard to do a live action in Japan.
Well, yeah.
That it is so rare that they do a drama series or an action series or a movie in Japan without spending a lot of money. And so it's a judgment. Well, yeah, anime costs money, but at the same time, it's worth it to them. So
I'm talking about like here in America, and I fully agree. Like if animation also gives you freedom to do things that would be very expensive in live action.
I mean, just use the One Piece live action. Netflix is now having to spend a lot of money in CGI because you cannot do things that Luffy does, or we cannot have a talking reindeer that changes sizes.
Well, you can, but it costs a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing. I just thought this, though the topic is one I wanted to bring up a little bit, this is definitely the appropriate series to do it with because, this one definitely hits that target of.
Oh God, yes.
But it does make me feel there are several anime that do make me feel a little bit dirty for watching them, and there are some that are actually considered good series that do that. The Monogatari series makes me feel a little dirty watching it. Main Abyss, that one makes me feel awkward at certain points of it.
But that's more like child torture. That makes.
I mean, there's also a lot of child sexuality that they do,
but
there is, but it's not as bad.
The sexuality, I've only seen the movies. I still need to watch the show, but the sexual content is not the focus there. It's there, but it's like here, it's much more front and center.
That's why I say there are those that
Yeah.
kind of make me. Those are good series that make me
Yeah.
feel like that. I'm not. I was talking good. There's a term in there that's different. The good part.
I mean, this one is not just full on HE. This one is borderline hentai. I mean, it is. It's there's enough plot and enough.
I honestly want to know where the border is in hentai with this series, because the only thing we don't see is the only thing that occurs in hentai, which is penetration.
Right.
Well, I guess we'll go ahead and get into the plot. I'm not going to do too much into this. I'm going to treat this a lot like I have the Skeleton Key series, and just kind of give an overview, and we can hit some other parts along the way.
There is a lot more plot here and a lot less wasted space, but that's a low bar to clear.
So essentially, you have this kind of church organization, and there are two. There's two rival organizations within the church. One evil, one good, quotation marks. And they're rivals, and one side has a particular aim, which you find out late in the series, is to resurrect God. They're on a mission from God.
Yeah.
So, and the other one's kind of trying to stop this. And in the middle, you've got this high school where you've got various kids going to school, and two of the women there get together with the main character, Sasha, who uses boobs to power up his elemental powers, and he and all these other Qwasers, or the ones who have these elemental powers, can do some amazing things with the elements they control, but they need to suck on breast milk, essentially, to get their powers to power up. And it turns out that one of the particular ones is actually a chosen one, and the other one has a particularly latent powers, and both of them are pretty much sisters. So that's pretty much the series in total. If you take out all the fluff, that's how it boils down, and it ends up with a battle between the leader of the one sect, who was resurrected, who utilizes gold as his element, and our main character, who utilizes iron as their element, along with their partners, which his partner, they call them Marys, I believe, or Virgin Mary.
Maria's, yeah.
Which I don't remember the part in the Bible where he's well, I guess he would do it as a baby, but I don't remember I didn't remember where the part where he got his powers by sucking on boobs.
Well, it's Japan trying to understand Catholics and Russian Catholics at that. So Russian Orthodoxy Catholics.
But before the loaves and the fishes, hey Mary, get over here.
Exactly.
There are versions. The last
Mary Magdalene was at the Last Supper. Okay.
The Last Temptation of Christ posited that Jesus had a slightly different relationship than the Sunday school version.
Well, it's more than that. There's always the rumor and conjecture from the I'm forgetting the additional Bible entries,
right,
that aren't in the physical Bible.
Right.
Well,
not the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls is all Old Testament.
Right.
Well,
yeah, it's interesting. Like he has a Maria starting out. Teresa is like his Maria early on, but he eventually adopts Mafuyu, but not after spending a lot of the series putting her down. And this was one thing. I talked about the inconsistencies. She actually comments after depowering that she thinks she was smaller than before. I definitely think she was. But all through the series, he talks about her being flat chested. I'm looking at her, I'm like,
Well,
for
comparatively.
her age, she is not flat chested.
Comparatively.
All right, I'm going to give a little note. There is charts for those that want to do art.
Yeah.
In fact, there are a couple of books out there in Japan
Yeah.
that are specifically the opai, the boobs,
Yeah.
to study the boobs, and then scale.
Hmm.
They claim she is a C.
Right.
She is a D cup, at least.
Well,
If
also,
not double D.
The
my understanding
comparison.
is measurements are different elsewhere. Like the European system is different from the American system, and I think the Japanese system
Well,
is the
I'm using Japanese art study here, Jacob.
okay.
What they declare the C cup in that show is not a C cup.
Well,
And
look at her.
I will grant you that next to Tomo, she does look very
That's what
small.
I'm saying. Look at her compared to the one that she's next to the whole
Or
series.
even
Yeah,
Mayuri. Is it Mayuri?
the one that is named after the coffee machine. Okay, she's at least a K cup.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Actually, to tell you the truth, most of the Quasars annoyed me. There were a few that did not, but they weren't in there very long. I mean, I liked the girl that Lizzie, who they all kept mistaking for a boy, which I was like, how? Oh wait, because you need to have them at least to be K cups in order for you to recognize that they are women. But
and also she was underage. I mean, she was like 13, 14.
I think all the Quasars kind of were younger. Like definitely Katya was also definitely younger.
Oh, she was the character I hated the most out of the entirety. She was well, first off, she liked to torture others.
Yeah.
Yes, she tried to find, people who were already perverted to bend to her will, but she was a mean-spirited, evil little girl.
She was the dominant. She was the dominant. That's why.
And Hana was only too willing to. Yeah. And that was one thing. Like Hana, I'm pretty sure was about the same size as Mafuyu.
No, Hana's less. Hana was probably what's appropriate around a B cup.
It might have been a little lower. Okay. Yeah.
There is an episode later on in the second series where they had a no boob squad, and she was one of them. The
last rep would have definitely been in there.
Yeah, the actual flat-chested girl that was there, she was in it. Who always sings the songs like "Smooth" but and then there was another one that appeared exclusively in season 2. That was in that, and they were all working together to try and for the benefit of the small, boobs. But yeah, but that one also. So that's the thing. A lot of those characters I didn't like. Period, because that one character was obviously a pedophile in her nature, and she wanted to basically take advantage of the little girl. So she wasn't necessarily a good person either. The other person that she takes, the other victim that she has later on, also is a latent pervert, but you don't find that out until season 2. But pervert's kind of an average quality in this series, I guess.
And speaking of perverts, is Mutsumi and I'm trying to figure out the other dude's name. Was it Mutsumi and Tasku, right? Were the couple that shows up later? And he's like the magnet user, and she was his Maria.
Yeah.
And I got the feeling from them, they felt to me like they were ripping off Miracle and Sango from Inuyasha. Like it really felt like a similar vibe there, because he's like this super pervert and she's constantly harassing him for being such a pervert.
It's a very typical group.
Yeah.
Or grouping in anime. So,
and I also thought it was weird how they got the one guy who was sister obsessed.
Yeah.
And, he was a fun guy. I kind of liked this character, but they ignored him and then they focused on the sister after introducing the sister. Again,
yeah.
Mostly season 2. They focus on her a lot in season 2. They drop him entirely. And they make the sister into not a very good person.
You're talking about, I can't remember what he used, but she was a carbon user, right?
Yeah.
Those two, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he had some, was it Roentgentium or some such thing? Some element.
Yeah, Roy, it's one of the rarest, it's a manufactured element.
Right.
That is primarily only used for X-ray machines.
Okay.
That's the only reason what his power does. I had to look it up because I was like, "What the hell is this element and why?" And then I read, it's like, okay, it's the element that forms or is used for X-rays. That's its only real purpose. It's a weak, effectively, element. But I enjoyed him. I enjoyed him as a character because he was, while he was perverted, he was at least apologetic. And the fact that he kept having to correct Toho or Taru about how to fix a meal.
I found he was most amusing in his first appearance because he is a part of the bad guy team, but he doesn't come across as a bad guy, which most of the people on the bad guy team came across as definite fucking bad guys. But he didn't really. I love how he came in there. He came in there to like kidnap the other one, and then ended up helping her fix dinner in the end.
Right. Which she was not good at.
Which is typical of an anime. They always have one character that's horrible at cooking.
And we should probably mention she is the daughter of the previous headmaster of the school who's gone missing. And that was one of the plot threads that was never really resolved in season 1. We still don't know what the hell happened to him at the end.
No, they didn't resolve it in 2 either.
But it turns out he and Otori and the school nurse had been working together at one point. And yeah, that's really, I guess, as far as we get with that. And the fact that he hid this thing that everyone spends the whole series looking for, and they finally find at the end.
Plot.
What's that?
The plot. He found the plot.
There you go. Actually, I just finished talking about much better series. One of these days, we'll have to hit the Tatami Galaxy, but I just finished reading the book that was based on, and I don't know if you guys, I don't know if y'all have read it, and I can't remember this show well enough to remember.
I've only watched the series. Yeah.
I can't remember how much repetition there actually is in the show, but the book has certain passages that are repeated. And the passage where he's talking to the fortune teller, he makes the comment of something like, they say a clever hawk hides its talons, or something to that effect. And he's like, and I have been just like a hawk, I have been hiding my cleverness and ability to, I'm paraphrasing, but like he says, like, I've been hiding my cleverness and skills and everything so well for the past 2 years that nobody knew about them. And in fact, I hid them so well, I can't even find them. And the fact that she was able to spot them right away means she must be some great fortune teller. Like I said, I'm horribly misquoting that passage, but I'm feeling like maybe this series is like that plot-wise. Like it hit it so well that it didn't know where to find it until it was getting towards the end.
You're giving the creator way too much credit.
The last book I ever read with an anime that inspired an anime was the one for Night is Short, Walk On Girl. But
It's the same author, of course.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, our library does not have that book. It has the other one.
Well, that
So-
book I actually thought was much more coherent than the movie, but it helped me understand the movie a little bit better. But yeah, that's still, it was, I still like the movie better. But coherence or not, it's just it was a fun movie.
Right.
Despite Dane constantly yelling at it. But as far as this, I mean, you've got your stereotypes. You got the tsundere as the main character, and they actually make fun of him like that. They call him tsundere boy. You've got the irritable girl, which is usually the tsundere, but he makes her look nice in comparison. And those are your two main characters, folks. Then you've got the airhead, which is the one being groped there. You've got the rich girl, who would normally be the foil and is sort of the foil, but I feel like they forget what they're doing with her most of the time. They don't forget her; they just forget what she's supposed to do.
She started.
Well, that's because she has large boobs, so she can't be forgotten because she has boobs.
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, they did have that weird out of the blue superhero episode where she was front and center. But
actually, my favorite episode, and I'll bring it back. I'll talk it back at the end of this. Out of both seasons, that is my favorite episode of the entire thing, because though it is boob centric, there's not a lot of boob sucking. It's not rapey. It's just entertaining. And
I had problems with that episode for a certain different reason than boob sucking. Because I mean, you like to talk about a lot of problematic times where people are being abused. They're clearly abusing Sasha, who's currently, and this is why I hate this trope, amnesia.
Yeah.
Not during the superhero episode. You're thinking the bathhouse.
No. It was the superhero episode was during that point in time.
During that time, but I kind of ignored it more because it was more of they weren't really messing with the characters much other than just continuing the issue that was going on.
Yeah, there was another episode.
But that was more in the background than of the upfront. It wasn't as bad as the bathhouse episode where it was way up front.
Yeah.
Well, the bathhouse, wasn't that the bonus episode?
That was the
0.5
that took place like right after, and that explained them telling him, "Oh no, you were a girl that was changed into a boy," and it was like just to fuck with him.
The bonus episode was the one about it was something like Empress something or other, but it was a Katya centric one, I believe.
Yeah, well, we didn't need more Katya centric anything. But
that was the other reason why I like the superhero one, because Katya was actually off her game. And she was having to play the bad guy, but couldn't really do it as the dominatrix like she normally does. So she was on her back foot the entire time that episode. And I prefer that because I don't like that character. And they made a character that was also annoying, which was the pink-haired bully girl, into somebody who wasn't annoying for an episode. So I was like, hey.
Portrait of the Empress, I guess, is what ANN is calling that episode. Yeah.
But I'm trying to... I mean, a lot of the stuff had revolved around some of the users. Like I say, I like the sodium user. So I feel like his purpose in there was kind of wasted. Which is too bad because they built him up big time.
I was going to say
I'm upset we didn't have a potassium user.
There wasn't, was there? There was magnesium, wasn't there? And there
there would be if you let the series go on long enough. And maybe a manga or a short novel or what the heck that's based on has one.
They brought in a hydrogen user at one point. We had
oxygen.
Well, Lizzie was titanium. There was the
Helium brothers.
was that?
The Helium Brothers.
The Helium Brothers, yes.
I was upset they weren't squeaky voices.
And then
Damn
there
it.
was Magnesium User, and that was not Magnesium, Mercury. That was
Mercury.
yeah.
Well, no, I when I saw Mercury, I was like, oh yeah, that's Mercury. I'm kind of upset. We never did see a silver, did we?
No.
No, I don't believe so.
I did find it interesting. I understand why gold was put at the top because gold is considered, most valuable item.
But it's also the purest metal.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but also in terms of they really went in. This was a point that I guess Brandon touched on. They could have had a really interesting series leaning harder into chemistry and
Yeah.
that and
Well,
gold is.
I brought this.
It doesn't.
I brought this up before. There is a chemistry. They made it Digimon-esque. I don't remember what, because it's been a long time since I've seen it.
Right.
But there was sort of a Pokemon/Digimon anime where kids were out there trying to capture the elements.
Right.
So I saw that well before. That's well predates this one. So it's not the first time I've seen it in an anime. I do like the concept that this series has with the anime, but at the same time, I wish they used the elements a little bit better because there's some things that elements would be amazing to do. Why didn't we have a uranium one? Dude, that dude would be fucking powerful.
Well,
they did get creative with some of them at least.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to say is that they leaned hard into the actual uses. I don't know if we mentioned that Katya is a copper user, and she has a living doll made out of copper that goes around with her.
Again, that was a cool concept. It's just they screwed her character wise,
right,
and made her into this nasty thing that very few people could like.
But like, for example, when they go up against the oxygen user, both copper and iron oxidize, and it can be a very good counterbalance. It is interesting that gold was kind of the top one because gold is soft. You can't strike but so hard with it. Anything you make would be malleable. It doesn't react well with most other elements. It would almost seem to me one of the weakest ones in battle.
Except for you're forgetting gold is used to make circuitry.
I mean, it's a good conductor.
Well, yeah, it could work there. Yes, but in battle, that's what I'm saying. Like it would be
you play into the circuitry, and I think that's what they were trying to do with the concept of gold. Okay. That it was a lot of controlling and through that because gold is used for circuitry.
Okay, I get that now. And that might explain how gold was able to possess others. That makes sense. But the what was the where was I going other than that? There was some but like uranium, you mentioned uranium. Uranium would be, yes, it probably would be really awesome in battle, but it also is a very rare element. So you'd have much less to work with.
The user dies quickly of radiation poisoning.
well, you have the one guy who was a silicon user, and he points out there's silicon everywhere. Same thing with the hydrogen user, the oxygen user. If they could have brought in a nitrogen user, and I'm kind of surprised they didn't, that would have been, sodium. These are elements that are everywhere. And yes,
we got sodium. We did get sodium.
Yeah, well, then no, I said we didn't have a nitrogen user.
We didn't have nitrogen, which is I kept trying to wonder, is like, are we gonna have a nitrogen?
Right.
No.
I liked how they were using sodium, but I feel like they dumbed it down at the end when he had to fight.
Yeah.
I will say that even though it was a two-parter with the Mercury, those people should be dead.
Yes.
I mean, a small amount of mercury makes you go mad.
Well, actually, they probably were mad. But
that's true of most heavy metals. So, like these, most of these metal users, I mean, copper makes you go mad if you have enough of it. That may be part of the reason Katya has such a winning personality.
Yeah, but she's not ingesting it into her body. The mercury user was doing that.
That's true. That is true. Yes.
I had to wonder, like,
but there was many a time. I read a great book that was geez, I can't remember the exact title. Quackery was part of the title. But it was about the history of bad medicine. And it does go into the uses of mercury and silver. Like, people used to turn their skin blue because they were ingesting silver. And
people still ingest silver for same stupid reason.
Yeah. And it's like, oh no. But silver and mercury are both extraordinarily toxic, even in small amounts. But it's, yeah.
You know what they reminded me of, the twins from that?
Yeah.
They reminded me of the zombies from Chevalier Dayon, which also used mercury.
Yeah.
They were.
But in Dayon, it made sense. And we weren't having boobs all over the place. and trying to use history. It bastardized history, but it used history.
It reminded me of a better series.
Right.
That's just like I was saying, like, I was listing all these series that are problematic, like this one. But like I had said before, there's one word that separates this from them, and that is the word good in the series.
Right.
I mean, I find Monogatari, I find Maiden Abyss, I find Oraimo, that's another one, Oraimo, very problematic, but I also find them very good. So they create a conflict. This one has no conflict for me. It's just like, oh, well, this is a terrible series and I feel uncomfortable watching it. I won't watch this again. All right, moving on. It's other series like that make me uncomfortable, but it's good, so I want to give it another watch.
Right.
That's where I really feel the challenge comes.
Or like one I mentioned earlier, that, and maybe it's just my take on it. Maybe it wasn't meant to be this way, but I thoroughly enjoy Gonna Be the Twin Tail, which leans heavily into all these different fetishes, but it does it. I feel like the show is a satire. I feel like it's
Twin Tails is a satire.
Yeah,
of the whole concept.
It treats the fetish itself as laughing at the fetish,
right?
Not as a main portion of the series.
The villains are powered by fetishes.
Yeah.
So that's literally how the villains have come about in Twin Tails.
Right.
But I find this series amusing that it had the plot for Gold, because Gold doesn't actually have a body.
Right.
For Gold to possess the big boobed girl simply so it can suck its own soma.
Yeah.
That's the reason to possess her. No other reason, just because she's got big enough breasts that she can suck her own.
Right.
It's absurd. This whole series is absurd.
Right.
Yet they made it seem like it's serious, and that's I am dumbfounded by it.
Yeah.
You see, I think that this series, like I said, what bothers me about this series, it's otherwise I would just have ignored it as a throwaway series entirely, but I do think that there is potential that is lost. I think that the whole elemental thing could have been done in a serious manner. They could have ratcheted up the Cthulhu-esque god, evil god that they were dealing with and the resurrection, and made a stronger line between the two, by the way, which is very hard because in the second season they make the line even thinner between the two sides. Then you could utilize that in a dark fashion. Like I said, pair them with a Maria, but use it like as in more of a holy energy that they radiate. not not sucking boobs. Maybe even stigmata, actual stigmata, which would kind of be sick in a way, but not as sick as what they're doing. Like, like there's like wounds open up on their hands and they have
yeah.
blood.
I don't think they know what stigmata was, because it certainly wasn't reopening old wounds. So I think that's another thing they didn't understand in the series. And I mean, I don't want to overgloss that God is a tentacle monster.
It's an off-colored remark. It's highly inappropriate. You want? I'll demand these text.
Of course, Japan would make God a tentacle monster.
Yeah, of course.
But again, I could see this. I could see, like I say, it's not as strong as something like High School of the Dead. High School of the Dead, I literally have a hate on for, not because I think it's a terrible series. It's just I think it could have been one of the best horror series out there, the anime wise, and it got ruined.
This is another weird ass connection between this one and Skeleton Key, because that one also had a tentacle monster show up in the 11th hour to play a pivotal role.
Well, to fight against the anime girl. You can't have an anime girl not fight a tentacle monster.
She had to fight against a tentacle monster to obtain the key.
And I'll give it this with Skeleton Key. It didn't know what it was doing, but it didn't take itself seriously at all. It didn't even try to take itself seriously.
Yeah.
This did try to take itself seriously.
Yeah. See, yeah, and I agree. This show probably either it should have realized how absurd much of it was and just rolled with it and just been absurd. Or, hey, we want to tell a serious story, so let's kind of rein in the more absurd elements.
So,
yeah.
Well, I mean, you say serious story. It requires you using the story. I mean, it would. I don't want to even say it would have been a good anime if it didn't have the boobage all the way through, because
you'd have to remake.
You'd have to have a plot.
Yeah,
that's like I say. That's the biggest difference between this and something like High School of the Dead, because High School of the Dead did have a plot.
Right.
It just got kind of thrown to the side so that we could watch boobies. And this one didn't even bother to have a plot. It's just that there are some elements there that could probably be reshuffled if you reshuffled the entire freaking thing, like redid the entire thing. It would take much more work to make this into a good series than High School of the Dead.
I would say again, I think this show did have definitely plots going on. It definitely had story. It definitely. The problem was, the biggest problem was, several of the plot threads were undeveloped or underdeveloped. Several of the plot threads were not adequately addressed by the end of the series. And overall, it just felt like they had ideas for a series. They laid a lot of the groundwork. They did do a decent job with some of the storyline, but at the end of the day, they got so distracted by boobies that they forgot to finish the plot.
Well, I'm going to use an example that was glaring to me in watching this.
Yeah.
For animation errors, I'm just going to cover it right now.
Okay.
You have a scene at one point where one of the girls wakes up in a bed that is could put 5 people in it.
Yeah.
They cut to a different angle, and that bed all of a sudden is a full size.
Yeah.
Well, you know how it is. Sometimes they get bigger when you look at it from a different angle.
Yeah.
Literally.
I did see that a few times throughout the series. The consistency from scene to scene wasn't always there.
Well, the weapon that Sasha carries continuously goes from a scythe to an axe.
Yeah.
And that
And it's just like
makes
a literal scene from scene.
Yeah.
because at least that they could make the excuse of it's changing around because to him iron is fluid.
Yes, but it wasn't that fluid. Once he made a weapon, typically he went with it for a good portion of the battle.
Oh yeah, well, like I said,
yeah.
I mean, I didn't say it was a good excuse. I'm just saying
Right.
the pacing is the biggest issue with what plot there is. They introduce some elements that don't get fixed or addressed, and then others they introduce way too late, which are the ones that they tend to that they address to the end. And I'll go ahead and I'll throw in a little bit of season 2. I don't know how much you really care about spoilers on season 2, Jacob.
Not really.
I don't think Brittany's going to watch it at all.
Hey, I know what happens in the end. That's all I need to know.
So season 2 is a half and half. The first half of the series is, I guess you could say, the most interesting one because it does try to take itself very seriously about a plot in a school. And it does kind of go in there, but there's a lot of rapiness. It goes into torturing somebody until they pee themselves. And then making that a gag for the character that did that. I can give you a few guesses who does the torturing. And the second half is about a student festival, which they give like a small hint at the beginning of what's going on. And then in the last episode is when they actually address the plot. So it's like, oh, by the way, this is what was going on this whole time. And we're going to resolve. Okay, it's resolved. And what?
let me just put it out here because this is what I read on like Wikipedia about it. Them versus vampire.
Yeah, that was the last episode.
Now, I wonder if they thought that season 2 was also going to be 24 episodes and then found out otherwise halfway into the season and maybe had to adjust quickly to.
I can't imagine from the first season this having had gotten the money for a second season other than guys were just getting this for the boobs. That's the only reason I can see it.
The first season looked like it was a masterwork plot-wise if you compare it to the second half of season 2. Season 2 made Skeleton Key 3 Part 2 look focused. I'm not going to say the others because the others are far less focused, but it really was just random. The last 5 episodes, with the exception of the last episode, were so unfocused. They had like one part where you got Booby Girl like bouncing up and down on her boobs like a beanbag. Weird dream sequences, odd stuff going around between Sasha and the potential whether maybe he likes the girl, maybe he doesn't. It was all over the freaking place, those last 5. At least the first 6, even though there was a lot of torture, rape, and just nastiness, at least it felt like it was going somewhere, and it felt a lot more like that than the entirety of season 1. So it's a mixed bag in that sense. It's much crueler, much nastier than season 1, but it was actually much better. Then they decided, okay, well, that was enough trying to adhere to a plot or pacing. All right, let's move on to just screwing around until the last episode. We'll wrap it up then. Because they literally introduced the vampire character at the very end of the second to last episode so that we can go in. It's they should have started that a little bit sooner, in my opinion.
Right.
Instead of dicking around for 5 episodes.
I can see them in the room basically being like, okay, we have this series, we need to put it together. What are we going to make it about? Well, I just want to see boobs. And they went with that, and they said, "Well, crap, we need a plot. It's 24 episodes. Shoot, what do we do? Oh, okay. God is a tentacle alien, or being, and Gold wants to get to God."
Well, look, Matt, this ain't a hentai. We can't do anything fun with the tentacle monster. Well, we'll have him quickly defeated, and it'll be quick.
Yeah. Then he comes back and takes Gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't bother with season 2 if you were even iffy about season 1. As advice to newcomers to this, if you dared to watch this now, I always
just don't. How about that? Just don't. The series.
One of the things I like to do with reviews when I do my movie reviews is I try, after I give my takes on it, I try to say who would love this series. We talked about why. I mean, I think if you are a big fan of boobs and you like sexual assault being used in a humorous fashion.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest issues for me here. It's not the boobs. I have no problem with that.
And you know who you are if you want.
Using sexual assault for comedy is not really my bag.
If you like,
and seeing underage girls, bare chested.
Yeah. So if these things are your thing, well, I gotta wonder about you.
Yeah. I mean, it's absurd.
And
The whole thing's absurd.
There is a lot of frontal nudity in this series. That is something people ought to know. In
As
case
Brittany said, they spend a lot on boobs on this. They spend a lot of attention. I mean, literally, you get to watch the areolas develop and go from any to outie type situation.
I swear a light core porno does less boobage.
Yeah.
And there are places for this type of sexuality that kind of make you feel a little awkward, but in a way that they want to lead you into, like Food Wars. Good example. Food Wars has that kind of awkward thing where they have the orgasms from food.
Right.
But it makes it kind of unique, and it makes you only slightly uncomfortable.
I still haven't seen that show, but I did see at least a good portion of Gourmet Girl Graffiti, and that's kind of similar, like the way that.
Yeah, but Gourmet Girl went a little too far, in my opinion.
You see what I mean, though? Like they really liked their food. And the animation of the food was phenomenal. Like it was food porn. Like
meanwhile, Cookie Master Boy was much straighter laced in the whole deal.
Yeah, but it's I will say, watching this show, I was thinking about something. Well, I had a conversation with some people yesterday where I kind of, I think I surprised them a little bit with how forceful I was being in my opinion. But I straight up said, you know what? Talking about the topic of like people who maybe are being canceled because they have in real life done some things that are illegal or that they should be ashamed of or whatever.
Like the Rory Kenshin.
He wasn't brought up, but there were some people brought up that, they and I just said, when it comes to enjoying their work, and it applies as well to something like this show, honestly, more and more nowadays, I take a very jaundiced, cynical view of humanity generally. People generally are shit. People generally suck. So if we're watching a show about people not being good, all I have to do is think about that, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm not as offended as I was. You know?
I feel like it's something different when they have the perversion behind the scenes, and then the other when they just throw it right on the screen.
Yeah.
Oh my
It
gosh!
is harder when you're looking right at it. That's for sure.
At least with Kenshin, they don't have it's not displaying that. It's
Yeah.
not on display in the anime.
Yeah. It's like, or also there in that case you have a mangaka, whatever the case will be for that person, that you're not seeing them anywhere on screen. But like,
No.
let's say you have an actor who's accused of such things. Every time they're on screen, you're going to be looking at them and thinking about that. It's a little different, but it's still the same basic idea. But thematically, there's a lot of stuff in this show that offends me and it offends my sensibilities. There's a lot of stuff that does feel icky and that does make me uncomfortable. But I just am like, okay, well, I see worse in the daily news, so okay, yeah, I'll live with it.
Well, I will say there's one flaw in the logic of art versus artist in this.
Yeah.
Because the art versus artist argument implies that the art is actually good.
Yeah.
And
you
again,
get a lot more.
I go back to the point of good.
Yeah. This show has good elements, but as taken as an entire package, yeah.
So that's where I would look at it like, yeah, it doesn't matter to me if the artist is perverse or not. I don't like the series.
Right.
I mean, for instance, Snow White's one of the ones that everybody's like up and down about. I really don't care because it's a Disney remake, so I won't watch it anyway. But it's not about what the political views or whatever that they put into that they want to show off. It's about how they do it. If the movie is bad, it won't flow.
Oh yeah.
A good example, Baldur's Gate has a lot of things that people would that would be against that sort of thing would have issue with, but it is still considered one of the best games, actually the best game of that year. Why? Because it was a freaking good game.
Right.
Again, the art stood the test of everything.
Right.
And it's not just the author or the writer or this doing it. You've got so many people working on these.
Yeah.
And you've got so many animators on an animated series. You got so many writers, not just the lead writer of a movie, so many people working behind the scenes. I mean, they're probably not all perverts. They might be, but that would be an impressive feat. In a movie or an animation or an anime where everybody involved is like a dangerous pervert, like just like the bottom rung of the person catching.
What is the prison anime of the prison school anime? that you're describing that one.
But again, every member of the staff, down to the person getting the coffee in the morning.
Right.
Because the likelihood is at least there's one person that worked on it that was like, yeah, well, it's a living.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole Bored Apes cartoon, for instance, I think was a horrible thing, along with NFTs. But there were people who worked on it that were just like, I need a paycheck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you get in anime, you get paid per, each page that you draw, and you can tell who got paid the most in the series.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the whole debate they had in Clerks about the people working on the Death Star.
Yeah, exactly, right there.
But yeah, it's interesting. But yeah.
Well,
and that's like, I've said that before. Like someone will say, "Oh, I can't watch that because it has Tom Cruise in it," or "I can't watch that because Mel Gibson's involved," or whatever. And I'm like, they're not the only ones. all those other people were involved, and you're dismissing their hard work too. And it's like, yeah.
See, that's where art versus artist becomes.
And this one has some good, solid people. Like the who was it? The one that Brandon hates so much. Why am I? Katya is Aya Hirano. You know, you've got some of the other big Mai Goto's in here. You've got Sayaka Ohara, Yoko Hikasa, Aki Toyosaki. You got some pretty solid voice actors involved, and
I mean,
it's just a living.
The audio and the music and the voice acting in this series, I had no problem with. I had no problem with.
I will admit the opening themes were lackluster, and I could have done better.
Some of the ending.
I'm not saying they were good. I mean, great things, but I'm saying I can tolerate them. There's nothing here that was like, oh, this is painful.
Yeah,
they did their job.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, as far as the voice acting, I don't consider it better or worse than any other anime with Japanese voice acting. But that's I guess unless it would be clarity of hearing the voices. But to me, I feel like I don't know enough about the nuance to really judge good versus bad voice acting in Japanese, unless it's like abysmal. If it's abysmal enough for me to tell it's bad, it has to be really, really bad.
Right. Now imagine if there was an English dub, and imagine they went all full ghost stories on it. Wonder what that would have been like.
I don't think even ghost stories treatment would save this. I don't.
My mind explodes just trying to think of how you would do it, because this thing is already bad enough. But then again, I guess you could go Mystery Science Theater on the bad boy, and just totally make fun of it.
Yeah.
Maybe with a competent enough cast, it might be able to make it into a funny,
right,
making fun of the source material piece,
or do like what's up, Tiger Lily kind of thing. The
which is
actually egg salad.
Which I will say that movie is probably one of the few Woody Allen movies I do not like.
Oh, okay.
Actually, no, there are a decent number of his movies I don't like, because they are hit or miss. But that one, I don't know. I just didn't think it's funny. But then again, that was his very first movie, so But speaking of controversial directors and so on,
yeah,
right.
But the controversy hadn't happened at that time, so there you go. But yeah, and we talked about the animation for the most part. But did you have any more to add, Brittany, on animation?
I mean, it was, like I said, it's very elaborate in detail in certain points, but then the majority of it, it's just completely just. There was no animation supervisor, in my opinion, on this. Maybe at times there was, but it certainly seemed like there are glaring mistakes that and normal anime would not approve of. You do not have changes in background. You need to have your background at least look the same. You do not have change. You would have changes occasionally on like weapons, but you're talking at a distance. We're seeing it like right up close, and it's a problem. And I think the worst issue here is, of a production is the plot as well as the content, what it's doing.
Yeah. I think this fell apart on multiple levels. So this wasn't just a writing thing or an animation thing, except for the music. I don't think it fell apart in the music, but I think that in writing and animation it fell apart in those areas. Actually, they both. Actually, I could say that they were both inconsistent. The writing and the animation was inconsistent.
I will admit, this is one of the very few shows we've done. Had Roger decided to join us, this would be one of the few shows we've done where I would not chastise him for skipping the credits, because I kind of ignored them half the time. But
I
it's
listened
rare.
to the
for
openings
me.
and enders like twice each, and then I was like, okay.
Yeah. The openers were lackluster. Both the animation and the music was lackluster. They weren't bad, but the enders were better, but and they didn't change them up. I mean, again, last month, Pawnee Punny changed it up so much that it's worth watching just for the changes. But like this one, yeah, you see them a couple times, you're not missing much. But I just have my policy of treating it as part of the episode, so I had to do it. But
we have had a very off start to the year,
except for that final episode. The ender was basically a highlight reel of boobs. And it's like watching that sequence was like, that pretty much was a softcore hentai.
Well, that was the point of the series. You might as well make sure that you get the audience what they want.
I mean, that is the budget right there. Everything that they showed in that ending was the budget.
If you're in that group of people that I mentioned earlier, you're going to love this series. Dave?
Not calling anybody out, but
Dave?
Well, if we're talking groups, I could see this being... I remember years ago I tried to do reviews for every film in my collection, and I gave that up. But I remember the review I wrote for 300, and I feel like this would absolutely appeal to the crowd that I said would love 300.
Oh my!
I think it would. Basically, teenage boys would love this series.
Actually, I had made that thought back when I was teenager. Back when I was looking at the Ranma stuff, and the first thing that caught my attention was the boobs. I'm not gonna lie, I was young. I would probably have been into this series.
The boobs are a fun part of Ranma, but that show has so much more, thankfully.
It does, thankfully.
Even
and
the remake has much
I will say, as the one of us that has boobs, it just made me pissed off. All right. Because I was like, well, why can't I have
that? Flat and smooth. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah!
Right.
I am not Cassia, or I forget the titanium user's name.
Lizzie.
Or the class rep.
Yeah, Lizzie. Or the class rep. I am not one of those. I at least have something. I just wish they were bigger.
But this one. But yeah, I do think this one would have been actually. I do think that teens. I'm not sure I'd recommend this to children, but
I don't recommend this to anyone.
But I would say that horny teens would probably like this.
So kids, go out and steal mom and dad's credit card and order this.
Keep in mind, horny teens like most things that have boobs or so on. They're not interested in the plot.
Now, this is not available on any streaming platform, so you're going to have to go buy the DVD, and you're going to have a DVD player.
They should be. Well, I don't know if it's still in print, but I know when I got it, it was pretty cheap.
It's still available.
Okay.
Sentai has it, and they run sales frequently. You could get this very cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw it on there last week when they had a sale. I didn't get anything, but I was like, oh, okay.
Oh.
There it is.
But yeah, with this series, does anybody have anything else to say about this before we go into some favorites?
Not really.
No.
I mean, I've already said my favorite episode, which was the superhero episode. It was the only one that I actually was able to be amused at Katya at all. And when I say favorite episode, that doesn't mean that I really loved it. It's just that it's probably the one that I liked the most out of the group.
Right.
That includes season 2. So what about y'all? What are your favorite episodes? Or okay, what are your least disliked episodes?
You're pushing it.
I think I'm going to have to agree that that was a fun episode. The only problem is it's so out of left field. Like,
it doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the series, practically.
Well, it kind of does. Like, it sets up the idea of those. What do they call them? The
little things that they like you can implant and give you powers temporarily.
Right, and somehow our Ojo-sama character had come into contact with one of these and decided to use her newfound powers to fight evil, which is an interesting aspect to the character. And it was interesting seeing how Hana and Katya factored into the episode.
I thought that was great that they were both like off balance and they both had to kind of act almost against character.
Right.
To play along with her.
I mean, I kind of like that Katya, I mean, not Katya, that Hana's superhero outfit was this BDSM outfit. I thought that was kind of funny. It's just, again, the episode happens out of nowhere with no setup. And it makes sense by the end, but so yeah, it was probably one of the more entertaining ones, but it was also one of the best examples of poor plotting and pacing throughout the show. Yeah. As far as characters, I'm gonna be honest, I did like more of the characters apparently than y'all did. I did not care for Sasha. The part where he thought he was a girl, he was at least kind of entertaining there because he was less of an emo ass.
He was a better person as a girl than he is as a guy.
What's that?
He was a better person as a girl.
Yes. And by the end of the series, we see he's not a complete shit person. He just comes across as such an ass. And so often what he does is straight up assault, even if he doesn't mean it in a, yeah.
I think that there is a bare bones framework that could be utilized. I do think that the dark, edgy type thing where a lot of the Qwasers were tortured and manipulated and all of this in order to get their powers to come out.
Right.
It had a good place in it, but it was totally ruined by the ecchi nature of the series.
Yeah. It kind of like, yeah, you had the one dude who was an unapologetic pervert who was like gleeful about it. And Sasha was just more, he just didn't know better. He was kind of like, we said Sasuke earlier, or like Ed without any of the character development or charisma. But there's also sort of an element of Goku or Luffy and just how friggin' naive and dense he was. It's like, it's almost like they took the worst parts of each of those guys and threw them into one. And it was like, really? You couldn't have picked some of the good parts too?
I mean, does the picture in the background look like a serious anime to you?
No, that looks more like a not so serious one.
Yet it is a serious moment, treated in a not serious way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'll say I did kind of like Mafuyu. I did kind of like Tomo. I did kind of like Lizzie. But, yeah, the characterization overall could have been so much better.
Yeah, that brings back that whole "what am I watching" thing. Oh, did you have a favorite episode?
My favorite episode is not part an episode, but a part of an episode,
All right.
and it is the end. The fact that it was over, and I didn't have to keep watching it.
That sounds like
Excluding
my
the
answer for
movie
Skeleton Key. Oh,
I mean, honestly, nothing about this series was something I could say a favorite. I think the most tolerable character to me was the boy that had the X-ray power or whatever. That was about the most tolerable to me. Everything else was just no.
I mean, there is a piece in the second series where the guy's sister. You talk about inconsistent in anime and art design. Okay, do you remember what his sister looked like?
yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, when they would have her boobs showing, her boobs were almost as big as the main girl here. They were huge.
Tomo?
Yes.
Tomo?
And one of the things they do to her is they put a boob lock on her.
I was going to say, she must be wearing something.
And it's basically a nipple piercing.
Okay.
And anytime they try to use their power or suck on Soma, they go through intense orgasms.
Of course.
See, it just goes. That's just a little piece from the. Now, I'll admit the main. I mean, I guess. Okay, another group maybe. If you were like really into LGBTQ representation, no matter what, emphasis on the no matter what. That you'll be like, I will take anything so long as it has representation in it.
Uh-huh.
Then this will work. But you have to be in the no matter what camp. You can't be the I will take it if it's good. No. It has to be it has to be just it's there, so therefore I like it. If you're one of those people, because I mean the second season, one of the main relationships is a lesbian relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
there are
it's
a lot of
first season
lesbian
too.
relationships in this one too. Yeah.
A lot of season 1 was a lesbian relationship.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got Hana and Katya, and calling it, well, it's a master-servant relationship, but essentially, but
Yeah,
it's
so,
a dom sub.
yeah, it is.
But yeah. So there are LGBTQ elements in this, lots of them.
Yeah.
But like I say, only if you prefer representation, and it doesn't matter if it's good or bad.
Well, that's almost like saying if you like anime that have Christian iconography and you don't care if they're good or bad or accurate.
Exactly. There are people who do like that. There are people who
Do not watch this for the Christianity.
What's that?
Do not watch this for the Christianity, and for that matter, do not watch Evangelion for the Christianity.
Matter of fact, this is a good Christian anime.
I can tell you two, Flying House and Superbook. They were specifically a Christian anime.
Yes, actually, the Christian Broadcast Network was partly behind Superbook.
See, imagine on Fridays you watch Superbook and then follow it up with Stigmata.
Good luck finding the original Superbook, though. That is, so hard.
They're on YouTube.
Are they?
Yeah, because when people ask me what was my first anime, it's either Flying House or Superbook.
Yeah, it was
because
Superbook.
my church what had us watch them, and where they put the kids down, and they're like, oh, you watch these cartoons, they're church, they're Christian, and never mind that they were anime. So I was like, oh.
No, we used to get them like they had that. You get like a VHS each month or something like that. Like we used to be signed up for that way back in the day. That was a long time ago.
See, actually, why don't we, as a palate cleanser, just out of curiosity, we'll go one down the line. What is the first anime that you can remember watching before you knew what anime was? And then what is the first anime you can remember watching after you knew what anime was? I mean, the first time you watched
I already gave you my first.
So, did you know that it was anime when you watched it?
No, because it wasn't a talked about thing. The first to know when I knew what anime was Project Echo.
All right.
Okay.
How about you, Jacob?
I'm pretty sure I've actually given both of these answers before, but like,
As
I just said, Superbook could well be the first, but that depends on whether you would count the OG Transformers, because I know that had definitely
Superbook came out before it for me, so that's the problem.
Yeah. So
and technically Macross or not Macross.
Robotech.
What we have watched Voltron. Technically, Voltron is anime because remember when we watched as a group, I watched Go Line.
Yeah, I did not. That was not part really of my childhood. Like I said, I remember watching Transformers as a little kid. So if you count that one, otherwise Superbook. As far as the first thing that I watched that was presented to me as anime, and damn my brother for doing this to me. And this is one of the reasons why I am so quick to dump on Ninja Scroll. I was turned off of anime for years because that was the first thing where someone said, hey, let's watch some anime. Don't ever introduce someone with Ninja Scroll unless you know that's something they want to see.
You can thank Blockbuster for that because that was the big Blockbuster pull.
Oh, well, I know. It was big.
So, yeah.
And I'll go one further.
Yeah.
The first, if I remember correctly, I think the one that gave me, because he also got a hold of Ghost in the Shell, and I tried to watch it and couldn't get into it. The movie, not the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the first anime that I watched knowing, hey, this is anime that I came to on my own and wanted to and did thoroughly enjoy probably was Spirited Away. So yeah,
the first one I mean if we do that, the first one I came to and thoroughly enjoyed because I was introduced with Project Echo by a friend and I didn't really like it. It would have been Rama 1/2, specifically the third and fourth episode. Because for some reason Blockbuster had that one.
I know the second movie was one of several things Brandon tried to get me to watch, and it would be on the short list of one of the first things I watched in that time period. But
I threw a bunch of weird stuff at you.
Yeah, you threw a bunch at me at once.
Cell
Saga, Evangelion, the Chunin exam from Naruto. I remember the Gara Rock Lee fight was the first thing I saw in Naruto.
Actually, though, that's when it really got good was the Chunin exam. I thought that from the series.
That is a good episode. That is a solid episode. I will admit.
That was a well done fight, animation and story wise.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I can say probably Voltron, and if Transformers counts, that would be. But at the same time, there were also other series like the ones on Nickelodeon, Maya the Bee, Mysterious Cities of Gold. I couldn't have been that old when I was watching those. The little.
But did you note them as your first anime?
No. This is when I didn't know what anime was.
Okay, when you didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, I think the Little Prince had portions there. There was a movie called The Mouse and His Child, which was partially anime. It was kind of partial Japanese and American work. That I had Jack and the Beanstalk, that creepy ass one. There is, but as far as known anime, it's between Sailor Moon. I feel like Sailor Moon was the first one that I watched that I knew what it was, because I used to watch it on Cartoon Express on USA. I couldn't have been that old, but then again, I feel like when it comes to anime, the first anime I sought out was Ranma 1/2, because I didn't know what it was at the time I was going forward, or at least I had a basic idea. That was back when I was calling it Japanimation, because people were calling it that around me. That dates me a little bit.
So you weren't a 5 a.m. or Sailor Moon watcher like me.
But I remember that I went to B&D Comics over in Roanoke, and was picking this up for my best friend's brother, who really wanted some Ranma 1/2. I said, if you have any, definitely find it. And the first storyline I got was Ranma and Juliet, which maybe that's why it's my favorite Ranma plot.
It's a good part though in the whole series.
I saw the boobs, and that automatically had me, okay, I need to read this. But I read it and I kept it because I was like, I actually really like this. And then I sought out some of the videotapes, and that was one. And I know that series got me into anime. That was the one that was that one and Sailor Moon, because I did like Sailor Moon. I was very much into that when it was on. Not the horrible Street Fighter cartoon that came after it, but but yeah. So those are good.
Well, I mean, I'll agree with you that Street Fighter cartoon was horrible.
Those were, for the most part, good anime memories, except for the Ninja Scroll for Jacob. To wipe away this, one of the things
I will put a little bit of a silver lining to that. Was my brother got a hold of the theme song for Ninja Scroll and would play it for us in the car, and that was my first knowing reference to J-pop. And I actually really like that theme. To this day, I really like that theme.
It has a good theme to it.
That was a good aspect of it.
So I guess I'll go down and I'll see what people are doing, and then I'm going to do, I guess, an outro. So Brittany, what's up with you these days?
Well, these particular days, I'm waiting for a router to come from Verizon. Other than that, I've got some comics release. Demon Blade issue 10 is officially going to end this weekend, and it'll be on pause for a month while I build up Demon Blade Chapter 11 to be released. But Witchen will continue throughout the month of April. I will come back to doing streaming. I just don't have a way to stream. I am finally feeling a little bit better from my health issues. And we will come back and, I promise, finish Final Fantasy Rebirth at some point.
I've heard that one's really good.
It's enjoyable. It is enjoyable, and I do like some of the stuff they did. I am a little pissed off at one character not being very good, but he was never good in the first one or the original. So
I'm actually doing old school by playing Suikoden again from the Suikoden collection.
I might go to that one next. I don't know.
They cleaned that up. They actually gave you an easy mode, which is not really all that easy. But I was just curious, like, oh, good, I can play through it quickly. No. But still fun reliving that, because I've beaten that one almost as much as I've beaten Final Fantasy 1, and that's saying something. But yeah, and I am happy that the Pony War had a release, I think last week, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So that was also there. All came.
I can after today. I'm amazed with what Nintendo's doing for a release and actually releasing a ton of new games for their system when they go to launch. Mind you, a lot of them are releases.
Well,
But
catching up when now that their system has the power to run it of the new system.
yeah,
Which next week is pre-order date, and for all you scalpers out there. Which
hey,
now Nintendo
we now
say
have it in law. We now have an administration that says no to scalping.
so. The according to Nintendo, they say that it is going to still be a limited release. Which I'm like, well, what was the purpose of you trying to manufacture those units? But that's
They've released on an app, because I'm on the Switch right now. You can request you want it, and for when the pre-order date is available, which is tomorrow. I think it's going for $450 because that's something they never mentioned in their wonderful hour-long stream today.
According to what they say, you can pre-order it from main places on the 8th of April. If you sign up with My Nintendo, they will send you the potential to have an invitation to buy it on May 8th.
I mean, you can do that now. That's what they literally sent me the link today.
I signed up for it, and that's what they said is that when I signed up for it,
Yeah.
they said, you can sign up for it now. You can sign up to get the potential invitation, but you can't be invited to pre-order it until May 8th.
Yeah.
Which is a full month after pre-orders go live. So, I signed up anyway because they say the longer you've been on the Nintendo stuff puts you higher in line. So if you've been on the Nintendo app for a long time, their online system, you actually get prioritized. I've been on it since they started for the Switch, so my hope is that'll
same here, and it's definitely something I'm looking in towards. Definitely, the only issue I'm seeing here is, is it going to be as powerful as as they say? I don't know. I really don't know.
I'll probably pay the $20 to upgrade Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom so that I can play it at 60 FPS, and maybe I'll actually beat the things.
Oh God, you're reminding me. And I went ahead and bought the Zelda latest one, and I've been playing that this week.
Matter of fact, I've been waiting on a lot of Switch releases, particularly for that to come out, so that the system won't have to chug in order to play it. Like the newest Zelda game.
I'm not putting my hopes in chugging. The system, I think, will still chug.
I think it won't for certain games, like for instance that Zelda game, because it shouldn't be chugging on the main system, but it is too graphically intensive. But I think that this one, which appears to be about on par with a PS4 Pro, which admittedly is pretty advanced for Switch.
For Nintendo, yeah, it's advanced. So I do like the direction they're going. We will see, high-end, companies and what they'll do in the future, but Nintendo usually is in front of everybody for their releases. So,
yeah, $90 games is not on my list of things, but that's
it was bound to come, honestly.
Nintendo, it bothers me because they never lower their prices.
Yeah, with that price, I expect Nintendo to at least drop their prices when it's used.
Anything that you want to throw out there, Jake?
I completely lost track of the conversation.
Anything you want to plug?
I'm just, keeping busy. You know how it is.
So I'm going to be changing the name of this to Animation Anti-Climax. We're going to include all types of animation. And the reason for that is at the end of this month, we're going to try and start a series of Adventure Time. We'll keep on so long as everybody is okay and not sick of Adventure Time, except for the birthday months where we will do a palate cleanser. But I figure I will open it up to any animation if you want for a choice at this point. So if there's a Korean or Chinese or American animation, so like for instance, if Brittany wanted to do He-Man season 1 of the original 80s film, 80s series for her choice for
God no.
she could.
I admit I am a He-Man watcher of the 80s, but God no. God no.
But Adventure Time is a kind of cool one, and we're going to be doing a role-playing group around it. So I figured this is a good way to kill two birds with one stone, allow people to get acquainted with the world, with the characters, and then, well, by the time we get to it, we'll all be well versed, because I need to be
I'm acquainted to it to the point I'm almost done with season 5.
So yeah, and plus it's actually quick, so that will help with Jake and his time too, because they're only 10-minute episodes.
Yeah.
So like, when you've got 22 episodes, but they're only 10 minutes each, that's not too bad. And
we will be talking about a rapey character, though.
Yeah, but not like this.
No, definitely not like this.
So stay tuned for the end of the month where we actually talk about quality animation.
Yeah.
Boy.
Good night.